All right, I'm going to bring up my good friend Maureen to interview me.
Hello, Laura. Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be able to have this conversation with you. And I have been greatly moved by all of the interviews. You've done a wonderful job at drawing us out and in and towards one another. So I think more good will come of it. I can hardly wait to see. I don't know if you need a picture with your book. Maybe you already have one, yeah. So for those who don't know, I'd like to read a little bit about Laura, her chapter. It's the ultimate chapter in our book, and it's beautifully written and very clear. It's called Life in a Battlefield, The Birth of Story Medicine. Laura Joan Cornell, PhD, whose spiritual name is Yogeshwari, is a 3-time, maybe now 4-time, best-selling author, divine feminine yogini, and sacred writing mentor. She is the founder of Divine Feminine Yoga, through which she has directed 9 online conferences empowering women's voices, and where she offers coaching, retreats, online courses, and leadership training for women worldwide. Laura is author of the book Moon Salutations, Women's Journey Through Yoga to Healing, Power, and Peace. In previous work as founder of the Green Yoga Association, Laura spurred a national movement toward green yoga studios, produced 2 major conferences on yoga and ecology, and sold 10,000 non-toxic mats through her living room. She has been featured in Yoga Journal, Natural Health, Yogi Times, LA Yoga, and Common Ground magazines. Laura lives with her husband and golden doodle in beautiful Sedona, Arizona, where she enjoys hiking, gardening, playing violin, and pickleball. This is her 3rd anthology of sacred feminine stories, and we're all blessed to have been a part of that. I wanted to say that
Take a photo. Let's just take a photo. I'll do
who's
it.
going to take a photo? Is
I'll
Hyla
do
going to
it.
take that for you? Okay, oh, you can do it. You're multitasking, yeah. You get it? Yeah. Taking it in. So I have to say, when I first read the title of your chapter, I was surprised just by the title, Life in a Battlefield. I was like, oh, and then you did such a beautiful job of bringing to light some of the conflicts that we're experiencing more and more consciously in our culture. And so I appreciate you as a teacher, how clearly you brought these to the fore, the conflicts of race, of gender, of class, of power inequities. And I also note that in speaking, with all of the authors of this book, a theme that is throughout is how we're experiencing potentially discord, or something's not sitting right, we're getting nudges, we have our intuition active because our heart experience is not matching what we're being taught or what's reflected in the outer world, right? So what did that look like for you, that discord? How did it show up?
Yeah. It's so interesting that you say you were surprised by the title. And yeah, I really do try in the chapter to make clear the battlefields that I have lived in or that are in the field. I think for me and for all of us collectively, it's interesting that I'm battling frogs. I normally love frogs. I have battling frogs in my throat today. Maybe it's a great metaphor to make visible what is invisible sometimes, the inner struggles. Well, in my own life, my family was very religious on the outside. And so you had the talk of divine love. I was raised in Christian Science, which is a form of New Thought. It was a religion founded by a woman in the United States based on spiritual healing through prayer. ostensibly to go back to the original teachings of Jesus, the Christ. Um, and divine love is great. I love divine love. And on the inside, there was a lot of unresolved trauma in my family. I was, beat up by my father when I was 2, and many other times after that. That's just the one that my mother used to joke about. Um, there was sexual abuse going on, a lot of sexual repression in the family. I think any religion that doesn't integrate sexuality in a healthy way is going to it's going to explode sideways on the children, in violence in different ways. So I was violated by my father and my uncle, and that family history. They were in turn violated, I believe, by their mother, and my uncle violated both of his brothers. I mean, it just goes way back. So that's what was under the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And I I do believe that sexual violence goes along with some of the battlefields that I talk about I don't know if you want to hear about them, but I think that sexual violence goes along with war.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're really touching on intergenerational patterning. When we don't get the chance to heal, we're just passing it on and we're just reliving it. Um, you've made some of your quotes, which I love. Unfinished business still rages in our politics today. The deeper wounds are rarely named, right? And so you do such a good job of naming them. And I so appreciate your practice of looking at all angles, real in being in real discernment. You talk about people need to be heard in order to resolve conflict. And so we first have to become aware of what's going on under the surface.
Well, I think the Civil War is
Mhm,
just this big red herring. If you
mhm,
look, that is not that many generations back for those of us here in the United States. And I know in my family, there were people that fought on both sides of the Civil War.
mhm,
Um, we have a photo from my grandmother. I don't know exactly which relative, but it was either a grandparent or a great uncle of hers who fought. It says veterans of the Confederate Army of Kentucky. So fought in the Kentucky side. We don't know the stories, but I know it was a descendant. And
mhm,
my grandmother was a descendant. And then on my grandfather's side, there's a very detailed military history of an ancestor who fought for the Union, when he had
mhm,
malaria, what battles he was at, when he had a serious bayonet wound and had to go back
mhm,
and rest at home. So in family and systemic constellations, which is a therapeutic methodology that I practice now, I'm a facilitator, we see how common it is that on a war, the descendants of war, opposite sides will often intermarry as a
mhm,
way, this human soul longs for resolution. But I believe that this unhealed wounds of the Civil War are what we see raging in our politics today. This country, the United States, is so incredibly divided. It
mhm,
You see it on Facebook, you see it in the news, the enemy images of one side to the other. There's almost no middle ground right now.
mhm,
To be an independent is like almost impossible these days. And so that the opposite sides are still fighting. If it's Republican, Democrat, liberal,
mhm,
conservative, every single battle goes back to that, I believe. It's
mhm.
unresolved.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
one
it's
of the
so
battles.
interesting that you say that we have this instinct to heal, this
Yes.
instinct to come together, right?
Mhm.
And we may be experiencing this intense polarization that's awakening an even stronger longing for that communion, that
Yes.
we would be actually part of that wave in telling our stories, right? That and bringing these things to light. That's part of the healing, that we're willing to engage in listening, right? You write that conflicts resolve when people feel heard, and that stories build bridges where opinions build walls, right? So just those
Mhm.
very images of the barriers versus the bridges. So, taking our opinions lightly. You also talk about how it affects you and us to have awareness of the damage done to indigenous peoples with the colonization of the United States and the Americas. I don't know if you're familiar with Resmaa Menakem's my grandmother's hands, right? He talks about generational trauma, and I just want to offer this to you. He speaks very kindly. He's a Black man who works in repair, right? And he says, think about the Europeans that came over. What do we know about them? They were traumatized.
Yeah.
In Europe, white on white violence, religious violence.
Right.
And
The
that to
ones who
me,
left were the ones
yeah,
who
that
needed to
to me
escape
is such
something.
a generous interpretation or a
Right.
generous offering of here's a way we could look at how we've been all harmed, you know,
Right.
that. So deep listening. I so appreciate that. Also, what would you say, to any other woman who feels these inklings of discord, something in her own experience doesn't match what she's being taught or what's being reflected in the environment or in her family or her culture? What was it like? What were the avenues that brought you into healing and integration?
Yeah, well, the three battlefields, one of them was the Civil War, one of them is the rape and pillage of this land and its peoples by the Europeans, the ones who immigrated here, and then finally the war between men and women. So those three battlefields. Well, for me, I have just healed over and over again through story.
Mm,
Through telling my own story to my mother. I was able to talk to my mother in my 20s about being molested by my dad. She believed me. That was amazing. Talking to my therapist, talking to my sister, talking to friends, being in women's circles over and over and over again. Practicing yoga
mhm,
has really brought me home to my body, and meditation. I picked up meditation in, um, 10 years ago when I was going through menopause. As a way to really learn how to come home to my heart. When I was a teacher, I taught Spanish bilingual as a way of, that was one of my ways of bringing together the North and South, which is now represent, there's more indigenous people in the South and there's a lot of European descendants in the North. So that immigration battle, which was raging in the schools, and it was hard for immigrants to arrive. I was a teacher, but I also through that learned a lot of conflict resolution skills with kids.
mhm,
I had the blessing of learning classroom meetings for helping them resolve their conflicts, learning nonviolent communication, which I taught to children and parents. And
mhm,
so, but I think with story, when we retell our story, it's so important not to tell it from a victim point.
mm,
Like if we tell our story to perpetuate, I'm a victim, these other people did wrong with me. Bert Hellinger, who created Family and Systemic Constellation, said victims are dangerous.
mm,
I really believe victim consciousness is not going to cross the divide in all of these wars. The Republican, Democrat, the liberal, conservative,
mhm,
um,
mhm,
the divide between men and women,
mhm,
the indigenous, the immigration problem we have right now with how to handle kindly,
mhm,
different opinions on what to do with
mhm,
so many undocumented people in our country. And, just is it kind to deport them, or how do we handle this kindly?
mhm.
And
I appreciate you taking a stand against, the victim mentality or the victim stance. And you tell a beautiful story of empowering children in the classroom. The
yeah,
story you tell about Zachary is really memorable. Do you want to share a little bit about
I have
the?
so many stories. It was hard to shorten that down. Like a lot of the authors, it was hard to keep this to the word count.
Yeah.
I have
Mhm,
so many stories about when I taught conflict resolution with kids. Yeah, well, Zach, that was a year I was teaching a Spanish bilingual fourth grade classroom, and it was my best year with classroom meetings. I had just finished yoga teacher training. We did classroom meetings a couple times a week, and the kids knew each other really well. They'd been together for many grades, and then all of a sudden this kid got put into my class like halfway through the year, and they could not stand him. He was not an easy kid. He was sloppy. He couldn't comb his hair. It was all greased down, and he was falling on top of them, and he was always fiddling, and he had pencils in his hand, and he was dropping things and bumping them and knocking things over, and they were just about to, so we brought it to classroom meetings over and over and over again, and they were getting discouraged, and the kids wanted to get up and said, Miss Cornell, we've tried before. I'm not putting that on the agenda again. I already tried. It didn't work. And when I started to see that they were giving up, I knew I needed to do something different. So I broke out of the mold of our normal class meetings, and I said, we're going to do a different class meeting. I said, Zach, a lot of the kids are upset at you and they feel like you're not hearing them. He's like, oh, what are you talking about? I said, here's what I'm talking about. We went around the entire circle, and I said, Elena, would you please tell Zach that we went through the whole circle, and I had them look, tell them what he was doing that was bothering them. And he had this was a major intervention at a fourth grade level. And he finally got it. I'm not going to say he was perfect. He was a tough kid, but from that day, he tried to change, and they were gentler to him because they saw that he heard them. So they were kinder, and it changed everything in the classroom. And I
Yeah,
used to run into kids from that year who said that was the best year of school. I ran into kids because I kept living in Berkeley another 10 years. Oh, Miss Cornell, that was the best year of my classroom life.
I was so impressed that they got to speak to him about how his behavior impacted them. So it wasn't just them saying, you. They were saying, this is the experience that I'm having when you do that. And that's amazing to think about the lives that you've changed there. So part of your title is about birthing story medicine, which I know is a new and evolving project for you. Stories really as medicine for the battlefield within. So what would you say to budding storytellers, writers, would-be authors about the opportunity and the gift that's held within that sharing of their experience?
Well, stories are medicine on multiple levels. First, the courage to tell your story. We've seen here with these authors, it is healing to write it down. It is healing to tell it to another. It is healing to polish it and edit it and continue to go deeper and have somebody say to you, what do you mean about this? What do you mean about that? And take that section deeper and go deeper inside of your own story. It was healing for me to write this chapter. And it came because I was really insisting with some of the authors that we really do everything we could to have our stories be written in a way that would build bridges. And I'm going to keep getting clearer and clearer about this. Our stories are not meant to divide. And of course, as our stories are political, how could you not tell a real story from your life without having it touch on politics, especially when politics are so big right now in our country, I would say. And I feel very committed to stories being bridges. And that means sometimes the way sentences we use, language we use, like if you think about in a marriage, there are, when you're mad at your partner and you're having a fight, right? There are certain words that are going to be triggering. And so you want to try and talk about those issues in the least triggering way possible. And so that to continue to build the bridges. And it doesn't mean, and I'm not talking about self-censoring or not saying the truth. We have to speak our truth, but there are ways to speak our truth. It's like speak the kind truth that builds the bridge. And so I really believe that our stories can be medicine for us. They can be a legacy for other people who are going through similar things. And they can be a legacy to build bridges of understanding across the political divide. Because when a human story isn't going to be divisive. It's going to unite humanity. Oh yeah, I can understand that experience. I can understand it. But even if maybe the philosophical underpinnings might be a little bit different, it's what help people at least empathize with each other and be able to talk to each other and live as neighbors, right? We have to live as neighbors. So Thank you.
And so often when we tell our stories, we're recognizing how relatable they are to humans across all cultures. And I
Yeah.
love the way you integrate your diverse spiritual traditions that you've explored and have taken on as practices, such as, the Quaker practices, your goddess lineage, yoga, heartfulness, meditation, and then weaving that in with other psycho-spiritual practices like family constellations and the
Yeah.
wonderful circles that you've facilitated now for many, many decades, I would say. Yeah.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you.
And so let's give Laura some love in the chat. What inspired you about her share, her passion, her leadership, her story, her chapter? And I understand we're going to be going to breakout rooms in a little bit,
Yep, I'm
right?
setting them up, and
Okay.
you'll have 3 minutes per person to share what touched you about any of our three speakers in this session. We've had Cheyenne, um, from violation to sacred initiation in Peru. Annette, am I going to hell, and her journey that way, and my talking about life in a battlefield and how that has led me to being so maybe a ferocious advocate for stories as bridge builders. Um,
So let's see where we are here. From Vajra Ma, Laura, I'm so grateful to hear you speak of your own life, your correspondence of sexual violence. The war needs to be said as you have. I bow to you for the wisdom and love that you have forged from your battle wounds. I am grateful to be in your life and blessed by being in your unleashing anthology. Thank you. The perpetrator often poses as a victim. We
yes, they
see
do.
this in the current head of the U.S. administration, just saying. From Molly McCabe, Laura, thank you for addressing the three battlefields. I agree wholeheartedly. A huge frustration for me today is living side by side with people who have no need to address and try to heal these war wounds. We must come together to heal. From Cheyenne, Laura, thank you for sharing your most painful life experiences and demonstrating the real power of story medicine. You embody your soul calling so beautifully. Your strength and wisdom radiates and serves us all. From Annette, Laura, thank you for showing us the power of vulnerability in experiencing story as medicine and for your example of vulnerability. Vajra needs to leave before the breakout rooms. Apologies. From Catherine Bass, I love that you said make visible the invisible. We are all diverse and different, and I love how you used politics to bring it all together. Our country needs love right now.
Yeah.
From Hyla, Laura, you are such an inspiration and catalyst for growth. Telling our stories opens the door for healing in such a powerful way. I loved your statement, speak the kind of truth to build a bridge. Yes. And I will go up to above to read Matt's as well. Camila says, thank you, Laura, for sharing your powerful story. I'm so grateful for all you do in the world. Also, needs to leave before the breakout. Apologies. So I'm looking back here.
It's okay. We
Oh,
don't have to
Matt.
read all of them. I love it.
Oh,
I could
I'd
get
like
the
to
read.
read Matt's. You are a needed force in my hope is that this much needed message pervades our entire society. Thank you so
May
much.
it be so. May it be so.
Yes.
Okay, folks, we are going to go into breakout rooms. Thank you, Maureen, for generously interviewing me and having this conversation. I'm going to open the rooms now. You will have 12 minutes, which is a minute to get in, a minute to get out, and then like 9 minutes, like 3 minutes each for three people to share. And I think that's what we got. So here we go. The rooms are open. You need to accept your room. We are bringing it home. If you would be willing to type it to the chat, what you got out of somebody else's share, maybe in your group, or just your final takeaway from the session before we say goodbye to the whole. So, book launch party. We've had 6 sessions with anywhere from, I don't know, 15 to 30 per session. And it's been so wonderful to be here with all of you. Annette, it's been amazing to hear the authors talk about their stories and the experience and to experience the power of story. Catherine, I love getting feedback from a reader. It was so inspiring how all of the authors touched his heart. Beautiful. Hyla, thank you for the celebration of these last 3 days. Thank you for coming, Hyla. It's such an honor to have you here. And Wendy's tried to come as much as she could. She had to be at the doctor today with her husband. Um, Julie, holy moly, Annette, I loved your brother. We talked about a book like this, but with men's stories. Laura, sure. I might need somebody else to pull it together and do the marketing for me, but that's a great idea, Julie. I'm totally open to it. Cheyenne, thank you for making one of my big dreams come true, Laura, and the whole circle of brave women. Love it. Maureen, a deep bow of gratitude to Laura and all my co-authors. What an amazing journey that will, I'm sure, continue. Julie, and still sinking into the gravity of Cheyenne's story. Yeah. Our superpower is staying present, not necessarily fighting. Yes. Molly, thank you for your allowing us to hear your voices. Of course, we can only learn from your experiences and continue to grow. Beautiful. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to say goodbye to all of you. We'll be doing a special event in the fall, Story Medicine Writers Summit, and I hope a lot of you will plan to come and hear from amazing leaders, lots more to come. And big love to everybody. Namaste.